My brother stalked and attacked my girlfriend. This happened at a wedding, and when I brought it up, my parents actually took his side. Now he's sitting in prison for domestic violence. The moment Claire, my girlfriend, 27, walked in, Derek went straight into creep mode. He immediately started acting in ways that made her super uncomfortable. He even shoved our mom aside just so he could be the first one to hug Claire, holding on way too long until she had to step back to get away from him. During dinner, he kept looking for reasons to touch her, lightly brushing her arm or shoulder, and telling weird, inside jokes that made zero sense, especially since they'd only just met. He kept bumping past me just to sit near her, and it all crossed a serious line when he tried feeding her with his own fork, all while staring at her like a psycho. Claire was clearly uncomfortable, but she tried to be polite. It was our first family event together, and she just wanted to make a good impression. Meanwhile, Derek kept dragging out embarrassing stories about me from when I was a kid, twisting them around to make me look like some sad loser. At one point, he even made up this whole story about how he had to rescue my high school girlfriend from me because I was supposedly emotionally abusive. Total lie. Claire didn't buy it for a second. I'd already told her everything about my teenage years, but my parents just sat there, nodding along like Derek was reading from a holy book. After dinner, things got worse. Claire offered to help clean up, just trying to be helpful. I was out in the garage helping Dad move some boxes when I realized it had been a while since I saw her. I went to check and found her in the kitchen. Derek had her cornered by the sink, physically blocking the way to the door. He was standing real close, telling her she deserved someone more fun than his dull, unstable older brother, me. His hand was pressed on the counter next to her hip. By the time I walked in, she'd already told him twice to back off. As soon as she saw me, she looked relieved and immediately came over to my side. Derek just chuckled like it was all one big joke, but I could feel Claire shaking. We'd been together for 8 months at that point, and everything had been perfect until Derek decided to go full stalker and blow up our lives. I guess I should explain a bit about our family so this makes more sense. Derek and I were raised in a small town in Minnesota. Our family was upper middle class. Both of our parents work in real estate and do pretty well for themselves, but they've always cared more about how things look than how anyone actually feels. Derek was born 4 years after me, and from the moment he showed up, he became their golden boy. According to them, he could do no wrong. Somehow, whatever happened, it was always my fault. Even as a kid, Derek had some seriously messed up behavior, but my parents just ignored it. When he was 7, he smashed my gaming console because I wouldn't let him use it when he wanted. Instead of punishing him, our parents bought him his own and told me I should have been more generous. When he was 14, he fed chocolate to my pet hamster on purpose, knowing it was toxic, and it died. My parents brushed it off, saying it was an accident and blamed me for not taking better care of my pet. In high school, he spread rumors that I cheated on my girlfriend, which led to us breaking up. My parents said he was just looking out for her. This behavior didn't stop when we got older. Derek still lives with our parents, works at my dad's real estate office, and basically does whatever he wants. He's messed up every relationship I've ever had. With the girlfriend I dated before Claire, he somehow convinced her family I had a gambling problem. Complete lie. Before that, he told another girlfriend that I cheated on all my exes. Also totally made up. And every single time, my parents either excused him or accused me of overreacting. When I met Claire, I decided to try something different. For the first 2 months, I didn't tell my family anything about her. I just wanted to protect her from Derek's usual garbage. Claire is honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's smart, kind, and works as a pediatric nurse at the local hospital. We met at the hospital cafe. I was grabbing a coffee while visiting a coworker who'd had surgery, and she was on her lunch break. We started talking about how awful hospital coffee is, and that turned into more conversations and, eventually, dating. It all just felt right. Claire knows everything about my family history. I wanted her to be prepared. She was the one who actually encouraged me to try introducing her, thinking maybe things would be different now that we're adults. She always tries to see the good in people. It's one of the reasons I love her. So I agreed to bring her to a family dinner last month, and that's when everything started going downhill. It got worse a few days after the dinner. Claire started getting weird phone calls and texts from numbers she didn't recognize. At first, it was just heavy breathing or calls that hung up the moment she answered. Then the voicemail started, creepy messages calling her stuck up or cold for turning down a better option. Some of them described exactly what she'd been wearing or said things about her work schedule. Someone was clearly watching her. Claire didn't figure it out right away, but I recognized a few of the voices. They were Derek's old buddies from high school, the same group of losers who still hang around him because our parents give him money to keep them entertained. When Claire blocked the numbers, they just started calling from new ones. Then his friends started showing up at the hospital. They acted like they were visiting patients, but they just loitered around the pediatric wing where Claire works. They'd sit there for hours, staring and making comments just loud enough for her to hear. Last week, one of them followed her to her car after a night shift. She was so shaken she called me crying, scared to drive home in case they were tailing her. I had to come get her, drive her car home myself, and have a buddy follow us to make sure no one was behind us. Now she's having panic attacks before work, and her coworkers are starting to notice something's wrong. Yesterday, I finally had enough proof to confront Derek. I had the voicemails saved, text screenshotted, and security footage from the hospital that showed his buddy stalking her. I went over to our parents' house, where Derek still lives, and laid it all out for him. He just sat there with this smug little grin while I talked. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said he had no clue what I was talking about, and then added that maybe if Claire wasn't such a stuck-up bitch, people wouldn't feel the need to teach her a lesson. Something in me snapped when he said that. I punched him. Of course, he immediately started wailing like I'd broken his face, even though it was barely a bloody nose. Our parents came running in, and just like always, they completely lost their minds on me, not him. They wouldn't even glance at the proof I brought. Mom was losing it over her poor baby boy getting attacked. Dad started yelling that I've always been jealous of Derek and that I need therapy to deal with my anger. When I tried to bring up the harassment again, Mom actually said Claire probably led Derek on at dinner and was just playing the victim now because she got caught flirting. Dad told me to get out and not come back until I've apologized to Derek and gotten my head straight. So now I'm at Claire's apartment, where I've been since last night. She finally cried herself to sleep in the other room. She's terrified to go to work tomorrow. Her boss has been understanding so far, but she's scared she'll lose her job if this keeps going. She loves those kids in the pediatric ward. She shouldn't have to give that up because my brother's unhinged. I don't know what to do anymore. Every time I think Derek can't sink any lower, he proves me wrong. Our parents are still fully enabling Derek and acting like me and Claire are crazy for reacting the way we are. They're gaslighting both of us, pretending like none of this is happening. And the cops? They won't lift a finger unless we can hand them hard proof that Derek himself is directly behind all of it. Meanwhile, Claire's living in constant fear. Her job's hanging by a thread, and my own family's treating us like we're the ones stirring up trouble. Has anyone else ever gone through something like this? I honestly don't know what else to do. How do I keep Claire safe while also dealing with a toxic family like mine? Should I be doing more to gather evidence? If anyone's got advice, I'd really appreciate it. I'm seriously at the end of my rope here. Update 1. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. Reading through all your replies made me realize just how serious this has gotten. Claire and I have been doing everything we can to follow your advice, keeping records, gathering proof, and looking into legal steps. Unfortunately, things have only gone downhill these past 3 weeks, and I really need to vent. We went to the police like many of you suggested. We spent hours pulling everything together, screenshots of threatening texts, voicemails, hospital security footage showing Derek's buddies loitering around, and we even got written statements from 3 of Claire's coworkers who'd seen it firsthand. At first, the officer we spoke to seemed concerned, especially when we showed the workplace harassment. But then it got messy. Turns out Derek's best friend, Chase, the same guy who's been part of all this, just happens to be the son of a local police sergeant. The moment we mentioned his name, the officer's whole vibe changed. Suddenly, we were being told that without a direct link to Derek, there wasn't much they could do. He even suggested maybe Claire was misreading things, that maybe the guys were just hanging around the hospital for innocent reasons. And then came the question that nearly made me lose it. He asked if Claire might have encouraged the attention. We asked to talk to someone else, preferably a female officer, but they kept passing us around. In the end, they said they'd issue warnings to the people we could identify on the footage. That was it. No real action, no protection, just a warning. It felt like a giant waste of time. And then my parents somehow made it even worse. The day after we went to the police, Derek showed up at their place with a black eye, claiming I hit him again. I hadn't even laid eyes on him since the night I punched him, 3 weeks ago, but my parents immediately believed him. My mom called me in tears, saying I was out of control and ruining Derek's life. She said going to the police just proved I was out to destroy his future over some harmless misunderstanding. Then my dad called. He was furious, threatened to cut me off financially, which would have been terrifying if I still relied on them. Thankfully, I have a stable job in software and my own apartment. He also threatened to fire me from the family real estate business, except I've never worked there. That's Derek's gig, not mine. Just goes to show they don't even see me as my own person, just as part of whatever story Derek's spinning. Then came the real disaster, last weekend. My mom had been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, saying they wanted to mend things as a family. She claimed Derek felt bad and wanted to apologize to both me and Claire. She told us they'd talked to him about boundaries and that he now understood he'd crossed a line. After a lot of thought and discussion, Claire and I decided to give them one last shot. Big mistake. We showed up at my parents' house expecting a calm family dinner. But the second we stepped inside, I knew something was off. The place was packed. My parents were there, of course, along with Derek, our aunt and uncle, who always side with Derek, and worst of all, Chase and two of the other guys who've been stalking Claire at work. My mom called it a family intervention. For the next 3 hours, we sat there as every one of them took turns trashing Claire's character, while Derek sat back, smug as ever. My mom went off on this speech about how Claire was clearly jealous of Derek's looks and success, whatever that means, and said she had been flirting with him during dinner that first night. According to her, Claire made up the harassment because she felt guilty about leading him on and wanted to cover her tracks. My aunt chimed in, claiming Claire was probably used to getting attention from male coworkers and misunderstood friendly behavior as something worse because of her own guilty conscience. Derek kept the act going like a pro, acting heartbroken, saying he was devastated that Claire would lie like this and that he'd been so excited to have me as a brother-in-law. Chase and his friends all backed him up, swearing they were just visiting Chase's sick grandmother, who apparently manages to change hospital floors every single day. Then it got even uglier. They started questioning Claire's mental health. They brought up the fact that she works night shifts and suggested she might be paranoid from lack of sleep. They talked about how tough her job is, working with sick kids, and implied she might be projecting her stress onto innocent people. Then, unbelievably, my mom recommended a therapist who could help Claire work through her need for drama. Claire tried to stand her ground. She calmly explained everything, showed them the texts and voicemails again, but they just kept talking over her, waving it all away as misunderstandings or acting like she had provoked the whole thing. Then Chase, this creep, started describing in detail what Claire had worn on certain days at work. If that's not proof of stalking, I don't know what is. And what did my parents do? They acted like that somehow proved Claire was trying to get attention. It all reached a breaking point when they invited Chase and his buddies to stay for dessert, saying they wanted to show us how nice these young men really are. Claire couldn't breathe. She had to leave the room. I tried to follow her, but my mom grabbed my arm and told me it was time to choose between my real family and some unstable girl trying to ruin everything. I chose Claire. We walked out, and I haven't spoken to my family since. Derek's friends have gotten even bolder. Now they're spreading lies at Claire's job, saying she's mentally unstable and has a history of false accusations. Her supervisor pulled her aside yesterday for a discussion. He said he believed her, but that all the drama was starting to impact her work. He gently suggested she consider transferring to another department or even another hospital. We've hired a lawyer and started the process of filing restraining orders. But it's slow going. Claire has also started looking at job openings elsewhere. One of her old colleagues said she could help her land a spot at a hospital in a city about 450 miles away. It makes me sick that we're being pushed to take such extreme steps, but I can't stand seeing her like this. She cries before every shift now. She's lost weight because she's so stressed she can barely eat. I'm totally lost. Every time we try to handle things the right way, it backfires. My family is delusional. The police have been no help. And it honestly feels like Derek is winning. How are you supposed to fight back when everyone's hellbent on believing the worst about you and the best about your abuser? I've been trying to wrap my head around everything the past few days before sitting down to write this. What was supposed to be a joyful family celebration turned into an absolute disaster, and it ended with Derek in cuffs and our family torn apart for good. Here's the backstory. My cousin Jenna has always been one of the only people in the family, aside from our grandfather, who's seen right through Derek's act. When we were kids, she once caught Derek hurting her cat and tried to tell the family. But my parents managed to convince everyone she was just being dramatic and wanted attention. She never forgot that, and she's been on my side through all the chaos with Claire. In fact, she even wrote a formal statement for our lawyer detailing Derek's disturbing behavior over the years. When we got our wedding invite, Claire and I were both nervous about attending. But Jenna personally called and assured us she'd only invited Derek because her parents insisted, and that she'd hired extra security just to keep an eye on him. She even made sure we were seated with her husband's family, way across the room from my parents and Derek. With all the security and witnesses around, we figured Derek wouldn't try anything. We were wrong. The ceremony itself went fine, mostly because Derek was occupied as one of the groomsmen. Jenna's husband is from the other side of the family and didn't know about any of the ongoing drama. At the reception, things seemed okay for a while. Derek sat at the family table with my parents, and Claire and I were across the room with Jenna's in-laws. For the first time in weeks, Claire looked like she could actually relax and enjoy herself. Around 10 p.m., Claire headed to the bathroom. She was gone maybe 20 minutes when I noticed Derek had disappeared from his seat. I had a bad feeling, so I got up to check on her. As I made my way toward the bathrooms, I suddenly heard Claire scream. I started running. Just ahead of me, Jenna's husband Miller and his brother rounded the corner, and what they saw stopped them cold. Derek had Claire pinned up against the hallway wall outside the restrooms, trying to force himself on her. One of his hands was over her mouth. The other was gripping her arms so tightly it left bruises. Miller and his brother pulled him off her right as I arrived. Claire was crying and shaking. Her dress was ripped at the shoulder, and bruises were already forming where Derek had grabbed her. Derek was clearly drunk. He started ranting that Claire had been teasing him all night, when she hadn't even looked at him. Then he claimed she followed him into the hallway, even though she'd been the one in there first. Miller's brother, who's a cop in another city, immediately called the local police. Miller helped get Claire to a quiet room, where Jenna and her mom were trying to calm her down. And then it got even worse. When the police arrived, my parents tried to stop them from arresting Derek. My mom was yelling that it was all a big misunderstanding. She said Claire must have led him on, and that the cops shouldn't ruin his life over a little drunken mistake. My dad even tried to physically block the officers from cuffing him, saying the family should handle it privately. Derek flipped between sobbing about how Claire had seduced him and threatening everyone, shouting that no one understood what he was capable of. He looked completely out of his mind. While they were putting him in the police car, he screamed that Claire was a slut who'd been asking for it since the day they met. Several wedding guests caught it all on their phones. The fallout has been brutal. My parents immediately went on a warpath, calling everyone in the family to tell their version of events. According to them, Claire lured Derek into a private area, made a move on him, and then screamed assault when he rejected her. They're actually saying she planned the whole thing as revenge for lying about the earlier harassment. They're even claiming Miller and his brother beat Derek up before the cops showed up. They didn't. And somehow, they're also accusing Claire of giving herself the bruises. Thankfully, Jenna's wedding video clearly shows Derek following Claire toward the bathroom. Between that footage, her bruises, eyewitnesses, and videos of Derek's meltdown during the arrest, our lawyer says we have a strong case. Other guests from the wedding have since come forward with statements about Derek's behavior that night, how he was making gross comments about Claire and kept creeping around after her during the reception. Now my parents are threatening to cut ties with me unless Claire drops the charges. They've been blowing up my phone with messages, some guilt-tripping me for tearing the family apart, others threatening to ruin my inheritance. Yesterday, they even showed up at my apartment. They caused such a scene that one of my neighbors called the police. My mom was bawling, saying I was sending her baby to jail, while my dad yelled that he'd make sure I never work in this state again. That was it. Claire and I made a decision. She accepted a job offer at a hospital about 450 miles away, and I've arranged to keep working remotely. We're moving at the end of next month. Some folks might say we're running, but honestly, we just need peace. We're not escaping. We're starting fresh, somewhere far away from all this poison. Jenna understands and promised to keep us in the loop about anything important that comes up with the family. What hurts the most is knowing my parents will never admit Derek has a problem. Even after he attacked someone at a wedding, with witnesses, they're still defending him, still blaming the victim. I've wondered what might have changed if someone had stepped in when we were younger, but I guess I'll never know. Right now, all I can do is protect Claire and focus on building a life far away from Derek and the family that keeps enabling him. Update 3. I wasn't planning to post another update, but something happened yesterday that I need to talk about. After 4 solid years of silence from my family, I got a frantic call from my mom that left me feeling both vindicated and just plain sad. Before I get into it, here's a quick update on us. Claire and I got married 3 years ago in a small, beautiful ceremony with Jenna's family and Claire's side. We bought a house in our new city, and Claire is now head pediatric nurse at her hospital. I'm still working remotely for the same company, and I got promoted to senior developer last year. We're expecting our first child, a little girl, in 3 months. Life has been calm, joyful, and everything I hoped for, which makes what I'm about to say even harder to believe. Yesterday afternoon, while I was in a meeting, my phone kept going off. Tons of missed calls from an unknown number. Usually, I ignore those, since my family has a habit of using new phones to get around being blocked. But this time, my mom left a voicemail, and she sounded completely panicked. When I called her back, she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Turns out, Derek got married last year to a woman named Lauren. None of us knew because we've had zero contact with them since the wedding fiasco. Apparently, they met at church, and their families pushed for a quick marriage. My mom went on and on about how perfect it all seemed, how Derek had finally found a good Christian woman who understood him. She said everyone had been so happy until last week. Last Thursday, one of Lauren's co-workers called the police after she missed 4 days of work. Officers did a welfare check, and what they found was horrifying. Lauren had 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and bruises all over her body. And the worst part? When the police investigated, they discovered my dad had been helping Derek cover up the abuse for months. Lauren finally opened up and told the truth. Derek had started hitting her just 3 months into the marriage. Every time she threatened to leave or tell someone, my dad would swoop in, using his real estate connections to pressure Lauren's family over their mortgage or threatening her job at one of his buddies' companies. He even convinced her parents that she was mentally unstable and making things up, using the exact same playbook they'd used on Claire. The final straw? Lauren got a promotion at work that would have made her financially independent. That's when everything exploded. When Lauren got that promotion, the one that would have made her financially independent, Derek snapped. He beat her so badly, she couldn't even make it to work. She called my dad, hoping for help. His response? He told her to put some ice on it and remember her wedding vows. That's when Lauren's co-worker stepped in and called the police. Both Derek and my dad were arrested, Derek for domestic violence, my dad for witness intimidation and conspiracy. Not long after, my mom called me, begging me to come back and help deal with everything. She went on about how families should stick together in hard times, how Derek and Dad needed my support, and how Lauren was probably just blowing things out of proportion, just like she said Claire did. I lost it. I told her exactly how I felt, that she'd spent her whole life protecting Derek, enabling his behavior, and hurting everyone around him. I reminded her what they did to Claire. I asked if it ever crossed her mind that if they'd gotten Derek real help when he was younger or held him accountable, maybe Lauren wouldn't be in the hospital right now. That broke her. She started sobbing, saying she finally realized they should have stepped in sooner. She admitted they always knew Derek had serious issues, but they thought hiding it all was the best way to protect him. Too little, too late. I hung up and blocked her new number. Jenna called me later to fill me in on what she'd heard from the rest of the family. Lauren's parents were devastated. They felt terrible for not believing her and are now fully supporting her decision to press charges against both Derek and my dad. The police have also opened up a broader investigation. Turns out, several of Derek's ex-girlfriends have come forward with similar stories: abuse, stalking, manipulation. It's not just Lauren and Claire. There are more. Claire suggested we reach out to Lauren through Jenna to offer support. She said Lauren might need someone who's been through it. And she's right, Claire had support during her ordeal, and Lauren deserves the same. Some people might think I'm being cold, cutting off my parents like this. But I've learned the hard way, protecting toxic people only leads to more victims. My family had chance after chance to change, and they never did. Now they're living with the fallout, and I won't be part of fixing it. My responsibility is to my own family now, Claire, our unborn daughter, and the life we've built far from all that dysfunction. Update 4. A lot of people have messaged me asking what happened with Derek, my dad, and Lauren. So here's where things stand, 5 months later. Let's start with some good news. Claire and I welcomed our daughter, Lucy, 3 months ago. She's healthy, beautiful, and perfect. Becoming parents has been the most amazing experience of my life, and it's only made us more certain we made the right call cutting ties with my toxic family. Jenna and her husband visited last month to meet Lucy. Watching them with her reminded me of what real, unconditional love looks like in a family. Now for the legal stuff. Derek took a plea deal last month. He's serving 10 years in prison for aggravated domestic violence, with a shot at parole after 6. My dad's case is still in motion, but his lawyers are working on a deal. His real estate license has been suspended, and most of his business partners have walked away from him. The biggest surprise has been my mom. After our last call, she finally started going to therapy, Jenna told me. She moved out of the family home and filed for divorce from my dad. Last week, I got a 14-page handwritten letter from her. She apologized for everything, for enabling Derek, for failing to protect me as a kid, and especially for how they treated Claire. She admitted they created the monster Derek became by never holding him accountable. I haven't written back. Part of me appreciates that she's finally seeing the truth. But it's hard to forgive when the damage is already done. Where was this insight when Derek was torturing animals as a kid? When he stalked Claire? When he assaulted her at a wedding, right in front of them? Claire and I have talked about whether we'd ever let my mom have a supervised relationship with Lucy, maybe someday. But that's a long way off, and it's not happening anytime soon. We've also heard from Lauren, through Jenna. She's doing better now, living with her sister in another state and going through intensive therapy. She's filed for divorce and is working closely with prosecutors. According to Jenna, even more women have come forward with stories about Derek, too, from his church, even. The police are digging into those cases, too. Lauren's parents have been doing everything they can to support her. They've apologized publicly for not believing her and cut ties with my parents completely. They're now working with domestic violence organizations to help other families learn how to spot the signs early and take them seriously. The family has basically split in two. Most of the younger relatives and cousins are with us, and with Lauren. The older generation? Still making excuses for Derek and my dad. Jenna's mom actually started a family therapy group for anyone who wants to understand how things went so wrong and how to stop history from repeating itself. As for us, we're focusing on our life here. Claire went back to work part-time last week and just got promoted to director of pediatric nursing. I'm still working remotely but thinking about starting my own software consulting business. We've built a real community here, good people, good friends, and chosen family who treat us with kindness and respect. Sometimes I think about responding to my mom's letter. But then I look at Lucy and think about how my parents would have expected me to let Derek around her, like he deserved another chance. That thought alone tells me we made the right decision. The cycle of abuse and denial in my family ends here. Lucy will grow up in a home where people respect each other, where love is healthy, and where no one is allowed to hurt someone and get away with it. Sometimes, cutting ties with toxic family is the most loving thing you can do for yourself, your partner, and especially your kids. Even if it hurts, it's worth it. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss more true life stories just like this one.